by the name of Caitlin Ford. And before she goes into giving us some background about herself, I'd just like to let you know that this is the International Institute of Live Events. We have several podcasts which are available online and available on Spotify. Links are on our website. So, Caitlin, you are another one of these interesting profiles that we've come across at such a young age. You've done so much, and we're going to get into all what you've done thus far. But before we do, I would like to know more about your journey. So can you walk us through your journey from studying at BIMM Institute to becoming a freelance live event professional?
Yes, so I'm Caitlin Ford. I'm an event freelancer, and I started at BIMM in Manchester on the event management course. And I only got into the event management course through sixth form. I originally had wanted to do medicine when I was at sixth form, and all my GCSEs and A levels were all surrounding this idea that I would go and do medicine and then become a psychiatrist. That was always sort of my end goal. And then when I was in sixth form, I got my first fake ID and I started going out. I passed my driving test. I started going out to all these raves. And I was really into like the local rave scene in Newcastle. And I was so into the music and so into just like how the events were put on. And I was just really just into the whole thing. So much so that I just totally changed my mind away from medicine and decided to do event management at BIMM instead. So I started up at BIMM, and then when I was in my first year, I started my event brand called Televised, where I was planning to put on sort of drum and bass baseline events for students in Manchester. And my first event was meant to be in May 2020, and then obviously COVID had hit a couple of months before, so that was all kind of put on hold. And I was also working in the suites at Manchester Arena at the time, just to try and like get my foot in the door, see what it was like to be inside a venue sort of thing. And as restrictions started to lift, Televised was still kind of on hold because we couldn't really do in-person events. But I started an internship with Go2 Live, who produced Manchester Pride Live at the time, and they also ran main stage artist liaison at Parklife. So I started an internship with them as event assistant, and then they then went on to offer me the role as site office assistant at Manchester Pride Live. So I was there for like an entire month from the very build, the first day on site, all the way through to the break. And then during the live shows days, I was venue manager of one of the venues in the Gay Village, which was part of the festival. So that was like my first taste in working at a festival. It was actually amazing because I got to see it through from the very beginning right through to the very end, and just saw how the crew changed. You know, more crew would come in, different departments would come in, and sort of like how it was built from the ground up. And I just loved it. Like, it was such an amazing experience, and I learned so much. And when that internship ended, I didn't want to go back to work in like hospitality jobs, which is what I had done in sixth form and what have you. I was a barista at Costa and tried all these other different sort of hospitality jobs. And I saw on Facebook that there was a new venue opening in South Manchester, which is XLR. And I messaged the venue on Facebook saying, like, do you need any event staff? Just thinking, I didn't even know what they might offer me. I was just like giving it a go. And I met up with the owner of the club, Chris. And Chris really liked, you know, the brand I'd built with Televised, and he really liked my festival experience I'd had over the summer. And this was like, I'd just getting into the start of my final year of uni. And he offered me the roles of, he said, you can either be the social media manager or you can be assistant venue manager. And I was like, oh, can I do both? And so for the whole final year of uni, I was running the socials for XLR. I was running the club on club nights. I was producing my own events for Televised. And I was also doing my dissertation and like completing uni.
I just wanted to interject in there because you hadn't graduated from BIMM yet.
No.
That's what you're saying. So
Yeah.
you're still in you were in your final year, but yet
Yeah.
you started up a small freelance as a freelancer. You televised,
Yeah.
yes, and
Yeah.
then you started your own drum and bass night. Now, for most people, that's quite daunting. So because you moved, like you said, you moved from medicine, and then you jumped into the industry, and I can see why, because it's a really attractive industry, and
Yeah.
it does hook you in. Because I didn't study events. I come from architecture and design, but
Hmm.
like you, I saw it and I thought, oh, this is really good. I can really work in this industry.
Yeah.
But I was 2 years out of university when I set up, but you were doing it in your final year.
Hmm.
So how confident were you that of what you were doing at that time? Because it takes a lot of confidence to start your own business and resilience. So how confident were you?
I think very confident. I think especially with televised, like because I was so into the local scene, especially before I moved to Manchester for uni when I was still at home and when I used to go out in Newcastle, I was so into the local scene that I was my own demographic. And so I just understood what sort of lineups people would buy tickets for, what sort of branding people would buy into, how to actually
Yes.
market the events. Like I knew that because I was my own customer. So
Mm.
I think I was, even though it was very scary, because it's like your pride's on the
Yes,
line when you're putting on an event, but I was very confident.
absolutely.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
very
So,
confident.
so you were able to be objective and critical of what you saw and what you know, and take that forward in such a way that you could start your own business. So I just wanted, for those people who are listening, they may not know what BIM actually stands for and what kind of course you were on that
Hmm.
would then gave you that ability to, let's say, migrate into the world that you found yourself in. So what is BIM? Who is this institute?
So BIMM is the British Institute of Modern Music. It is
Hmm.
essentially a music school. There's a couple around the country, but I studied at the one in Manchester. And
In
the
the city
course
centre,
that, yes, and the course that I studied was event management. So it focused solely on music events, which I liked compared to other unis, which may have focused on, like other uni event management courses may have focused on conferences or sport events or different kinds of events. I like the idea of focusing solely on music events, which is what BIM offered, and which is why I chose
yeah.
BIM. But the course itself was like kind of exploring why we go to events, how an event runs, like the logistics behind an event, how we market an event, how we build a brand. There was some like technical production sort of elements to the course. It was kind of really well rounded, and I really enjoyed it. To be honest, I had a great time at BIM.
Yeah. So the course really set you up for the industry, would you say?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And with BIM as well, I'm not sure if it's the same at other ones, but in Manchester, all of the tutors also work in the industry. And even since graduating, I've worked with a couple of my old tutors on events. So they actually
Mhm.
knew, like, they properly knew that how the industry worked and like had connections in the industry.
Yeah.
So it was like so helpful, especially when, as you know, this industry is all about like who you know and making connections rather than what you know. So that was like super helpful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really industry informed in terms
Yeah.
of the people who are teaching you, but also giving you access to the industry. But and now full circle, you're meeting them again while you're
Yeah.
working. And
Yeah.
that's rare for most university courses to
Yeah.
have a team of academics who are professionals in their field and still work in their fields,
Yeah.
particularly in events, and can take that into the classroom as well. And I think that gives a lot of authenticity to the teaching and also to the engagement you get from the students. So I believe in that philosophy 100%.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're doing vocational courses, there's got to be an element where you whatever you preach, at least you show me that you've done it, at
Yeah.
least recently, or you're doing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
100%. So helpful.
So yeah, so I'll move on to another point because you're only at that stage, what, 21?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're 21 years old, and
Yeah.
you're running your own televised drum and bass night, and you're now working for a club in
Yeah.
Manchester, correct?
Yeah.
As an assistant manager, is that correct?
I was an assistant venue manager, but I did run
Yeah.
the club solo on club nights.
Right. So there's a few logistical and legal situations here which we don't want to get into. So your name wasn't on the license. You didn't have
No.
a personal license or an alcohol license. You were just the operations manager.
Yes, correct.
Right. Okay. But I take it you probably have you got your personal license?
Not since, no.
Not since. Right. Okay. That might be a future one for you to get.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
you can own your own. That's what we would
Yeah,
like to see. That's what we'd like
I
to see in the
know.
future.
I
So this
know.
person had given you responsibility in the space of knowing you for how long?
Like we had just met and he offered me this role. Honestly, so trusting. And I'm still friends with, it's Chris is the owner. I'm still friends with him now. Like trusted me so much, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity because that is
Mhm.
mental. I don't know if I would have done the same.
That is, but I say this to my students sometimes. The first impression you make when you meet business people can count for a lot, and they can
Yeah,
tell a lot. They can tell a lot from you about your energy, your enthusiasm, and passion about
hmm,
what you want to do, and people, and that can be infectious. And when given the opportunity to flourish in a particular role or situation, people tend to flourish. Yes, they may make a few mistakes.
yeah,
Then that's just the nature of work. But
yeah,
overall, they really do flourish. So he must have seen something in you from first meeting you,
yeah,
because obviously, like you said, you'd already started a drum and bass night, and you were still a student. So that takes a lot of, like I said, resilience
yeah,
and a lot of self-belief and
yeah,
confidence to say, I can do this, even though I'm still studying.
yeah,
So even though from your point of view, you're thinking, well, I wouldn't do this, he's probably looking at you and thinking, it's probably the most motivated person I've seen in a long time.
mm,
Let's give her a chance.
yeah,
So
maybe.
so so did it work out, that relationship, and in terms of the venue manager role that you had?
Yeah, it did. I carried on managing XLR for my entire third year.
Mhm.
Loved it. Even like my first event with televised was in XLR. And we had some great events and great DJs on in there, and it really taught me so much. Like I handled so many different types of issues and situations whilst working there. It just gave me so much confidence. So then by the time I had graduated, I kind of went into freelancing full time properly then. And I left XLR and started working in festivals and what have you, which is what I've been doing ever since.
Right. So before we jump too far ahead, um,
Mhm.
I just want to make sure for our listeners, because what age are you now, Caitlin?
So when I graduated, I was 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the
But
age
I'm
that you
now
were,
I'm 26.
you're 26,
Just
right?
turned. Yeah.
Yes. So in that short space of time, we're going to look at the arc of what you've done. And I think that's really impressive from somebody who's just left university.
Mhm.
So you said you were doing production and operation and logistics, particularly when you were a venue manager.
Mhm.
And also because you studied it while you were at BIMM as well. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. So what are your most common overlooked detail that you can make or break a live event from the point of view that what you have been doing, not necessarily from what you've been taught?
From being a freelancer, I think something that clients can often overlook is the
Mhm.
budget surrounding staffing and staff welfare. Um, Especially as a freelancer, because you hop to so many different events. You know, during summer, some of my freelance friends and me myself have done like 10, 12 festivals in one summer. So you're literally back to back, like bouncing between these events. And
Yeah.
when a client really cuts corners on like staff accommodation, staff food, it really makes a difference to like your well-being and sort of
Mhm.
your productivity. Then it all kind of leads off one into another. Like
Yeah.
if you're being fed just chips every night, you're not gonna have the energy to go and do like a full 12-hour graft.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I
I
think
know
that's a
I
big
know
one.
exactly what you mean. And
Yeah.
and I commend event organizers who really look after their staff between food. And one of the best companies I worked for in regards to that point that you said, in terms of food, was working for V Festival,
Mm-hmm.
because the food they gave us was the same food they would give to the artists.
Mm,
So the quality of the food was exactly the same.
yeah.
And not only that, you would be eating in the same area where the backstage where the artists were eating. So
Yeah.
you'll be sat at the table, and the person who's just been on main stage is probably sat at the table with you, and
Yeah.
nobody's batting an eyelid because everybody got their job to do, but everybody's eating really good quality food. And going
Yeah.
back to what you said, that allows you to go away and do the job that you need to do, regardless if you're
Yeah.
paid or not.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of organizers should take heed to that, like you said about the well-being of their staff, and they wonder why their staff don't come back the next day.
Yeah.
um, there's a lot of reasons that could be that have culminated into to why they haven't, and more often than not, they don't get that feedback. They just know that they're missing somebody, and that person has blocked that number. Now they don't want to work with that company
Yeah.
anymore. But you moved on. You went on. So you worked on major festivals like Park Life, Manchester Pride, correct?
Hmm.
So can you share a behind the scene moment that really tested your problem solving skills?
Yes. So this happened not at either of those events, a different
Mhm.
event. I was doing artist liaison and I had an artist who really wasn't happy about the dressing room situation to the point that they were threatening to not play at all. It was quite a big artist, and obviously that was quite a stressful time because both the artist and their tour manager were both up in my grill about it.
Mhm.
And it was at a point in the day where there was just no time to make any huge changes to the dressing room. Like it just wasn't possible. So in that moment, I could have just ran away from it, to be honest. Like they really were in my face about it. Um, and threatening not to play. But in that moment, I just had to think about what I could control, and the things I could control were their rider, their transportation, and my own like customer service sort of skills and how I spoke to them. And so by like keeping my cool, being professional with them, making sure that they had all of their rider that they'd requested, making sure that there was someone there to take them back after their set, and making sure it was all like timed to perfection. Like at the end of their set, it was all like handshakes and thank yous, and they were actually
Mhm.
really happy by the end, despite everything that happened at the beginning. So I think that was like a really big problem that I had to solve, and I felt
Mhm.
really proud after that it all went smoothly in the end.
So do you find that your character under pressure is that you can deal with those situations under pressure without getting alarmed or flustered?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's
Mhm.
a really good skill to have as well. Really handy sometimes.
For your own sanity, I would
Yeah,
presume.
for my own sanity for sure.
So keeping with the operation side,
Mm,
in terms of your approach and managing festival site operation, because you do a lot of that now. That's what you
mhm,
do. Yeah,
mhm.
right. And particularly when coordinating between multiple stakeholders like security, police, bar managers, and stage teams. So how do you how do you manage that aspect? Because that's quite an intense and could be quite complicated aspects where you have so many different stakeholders who want information and resources from you, and you're constantly at their beck and call. How do you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think first of all, being able to be chilled out and be able to, kind of deal with pressure well is really a great advantage in that sort of situation. I think for me, like getting things out of my head and onto paper, like whether it's like a to-do list or something in my notes app on my phone, like getting it out of my head really helps me see it for what it is. And then I can sort of prioritize what it is I need to do. If there's different stakeholders that I need to, provide information for or get something to them, being able to like see it in a list form and be able to prioritize which bits are important is really helpful. So sometimes in events, because it's so say on a festival day and it's so the adrenaline's high and everyone's like under really high pressure and there's customers and there's high energy and there's music, and small little things could seem like the biggest problem, but if you really think, like, have it written down and like look at it for what it is and think, is it actually that deep? If they don't get that bit of information right now, sometimes it's actually not, and you just have to look, like, totally just look at it for what it is. And then I think that's the best way to deal with multiple stakeholders at the same time.
Okay, so I looked across your LinkedIn, and your LinkedIn recommendations mentions your passion for creating strong community within the events industry. So I suppose, why is community building an important to you, and how do you foster it, being a people person?
Yeah, I think community is so important, not even just in work, like just in life in general. And, you know, I have deep spiritual thoughts all the time, but I always just think, like, at the end of the day, we're all on like a floating rock in space, like nothing actually really matters. But what the only reason why we're all here is to support each other, to build connection with each other, to help each other. And that's the same in events. Like, I'm not the kind of person that gatekeeps. I like to try and help people wherever I can, whether that's with getting into the industry, whether that's with, you know, any question that people ask me, I like to try and help as much as I can. So that's how I would say I foster it, by just like doing my absolute best. But I just think it's so important because we're all just here to just help each other. There's room for everyone to do well and succeed. And the whole point of an event is to bring people together for, you know, in unity, whether that's for a love of art or sport or music, whatever kind of event it is, everyone's there for the same reason. And I think it's nice to not only have that in front of the stage, but also behind the stage as well.
Oh, that's really good, because like you said, the whole point, like you said, about gatekeeping, a lot of people have a certain amount of knowledge, contacts or whatever you, and they don't want to share it with anybody, and they keep it to themselves. And that you can understand to some degree, but like you said, we live in a community, and we tend to meet people as we go through our lives again and again, particularly if we work in the same industry. And the events industry, as big as it is and global, like you said, you tend to meet people that you saw a year before, 6 months before, and the people, and I know you're only 26, but the people that you know today, you would more than likely meet them again in the next 10, 15 years from now if you stay in this industry. So yes, how you perceive yourself and how people perceive you is absolutely essential, and trying to get that over to people who are trying to start off in this industry is something that they really need to understand about how to be personable and community focused. So I'd like you to give an advice that would give to an emerging event professional trying to break into the live events industry on the back of what you said. So particularly in the UK festival circuit, what advice could you give them?
I would say,
in your young age?
My words of wisdom at this age.
Yes, your words of wisdom.
I would say just saying yes to everything that you can, any opportunity that either comes your way or you can seek out yourself, say yes to. Even if it's like, for me, one of my first event sort of jobs was working as a food and beverage assistant in the suites at Manchester Arena. It was actually nothing to do with the events, but I was able to go in there. I saw tour buses for the first time. I saw what a backstage looked like for the first time. I saw what a sound check looked like for the first time. And it's sort of like everything can give you a lesson or teach you something, help you learn a new skill. And it also can help you meet new people. Like this event industry, as we've said, it's all about networking, about who you meet. Like, you might say yes to a job and it's not a job you're particularly excited about, or it's not really a role that you see yourself in 10 years, but you might meet someone who helps you get to where you actually want to be. So I would say just say yes to everything. It's all about getting out there. And also, while you're at an event, don't be shy to ask someone how they got to where they are, or ask someone to teach you something, like, you know, like someone that's been in it for years that you're working with, a manager or whatever, you know, people are really like receptive to talk about what they're good at, and people are
Mhm.
actually really open to teach you something new. So I would say don't be shy and say yes to everything. And another one, just not to keep going on.
Keep coming,
Um,
keep coming.
but also just like cold emailing, it's exhausting at times, like cold emailing companies or messaging people on LinkedIn who are related to an event in some way, that or a festival that you want to work at. It can be exhausting and you can receive a lot of no's or people don't reply. But for
Mhm.
me, cold emailing has opened so many doors. There's so many opportunities that I've got even today that have just come from me emailing someone and sending my CV and seeing if they had any opportunity for me.
Yeah.
So even if an opportunity doesn't look like it's there, just give it a try, because there's always things that aren't posted online that people are looking for staff for.
Okay. Most people, when they leave uni, they tend to want a bit of security,
Mm,
but entrepreneurs have a different mindset. So
mm,
you've done the full-time staff and you've also done the freelancing.
yeah.
So what would you say are the advantages and challenges of working as a freelance event professional versus being on staff?
I was thinking about it, and I feel like the advantage and the disadvantage is both the work-life balance. Like, I feel like being freelance, it's such an advantage that you don't have to request holiday time. Like, I definitely don't work anywhere near as much as someone that has a 9 to 5. I take so much extra time off. But then at the same time, the disadvantage is when you are working on a project, especially festivals, it tends to be really long days working away from home, and you don't really have time for much else. And it's hard to sort of, it's a really fine line keeping the balance of, you know, being away for work and earning enough money so that you have enough time where you're at home and you can see your family and see your friends and enjoy life. And also this like financial things in the freelance world, you obviously don't get like a pension unless you like go ahead and pay into one yourself. You don't get holiday pay, sick pay, all them sort of things you have to factor in. Um, but the benefits of being freelance, and I feel like for me, I've been able to like propel my career way quicker being freelance, being able to jump from so many different roles, that it's been quicker to excel than it might have been in a 9 to 5 sort of life.
I think you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
As you just said that, I was reflecting on mine as well. And
Mm,
that when like I said, I was 2 years out of university, a year out of university, when I set up as a freelancer,
uh-huh.
with a good college friend of mine, and we just did that for years. And like I said, I found myself working on so many different projects that I probably would have never got the opportunity to work on if I
Yeah.
was in a paid role for an
Yeah.
organization. So you're right, because more opportunities tend to come your way, or you seek out more opportunities for yourself
Yeah.
when you're a freelancer, rather than waiting for whatever that production company or that event company gives you, as and when they come in.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you can't get good work with event agencies, but it's a different, like you said, it's a really different lifestyle and
Yeah.
mindset. So
100%.
I wanted to touch on it before I forget, because the last time we spoke, you were in Ibiza,
Mm-hmm.
but I know from following you on Instagram, you've been all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So the festivals that you worked on, just reel off where you've been with these festivals.
So I've worked on events, well, all over the UK to
Mhm.
start. I've done a few festivals in Albania. I was working in Ibiza, but that wasn't at a festival. That was like on a photo shoot. It was actually not even events, but I've done a couple of festivals in Saudi Arabia and Australia, and
Mhm.
I've worked on events in Canada and the US, so all over the shop.
Yes, that is, well, nearly all continents you've been on. That
Most.
is impressive. That is impressive, to be so flexible that you're prepared to go wherever the work is,
Hmm.
even as far afield as Australia, to
Yeah.
then and to America and to North America in itself.
Yeah.
So yes, we have to commend you on that, because
Thank you.
a lot of people may think, well, I don't want to leave my city.
Mm,
I just want to stay in my city. And if that's the case, and you can find the work, that's fine.
yeah.
But within our industry, I feel that the flexibility to have more flexibility, like particularly the way you've just recounted, gives you more opportunity. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. And especially, at this age where I don't have kids or like I don't have a mortgage or anything that would make me need to stay in the UK. I'm like, why not travel and work at the same time and see the world a bit whilst I'm
Yeah,
young?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I know that sentiment 100%.
Yeah.
So I'd like to talk about the assistant general manager role, which I think you said, but this one is at XLR nightclub.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the nightclub venue experience is a totally different experience to doing festival.
Yeah.
So your approach to festivals and live event production within that, how is that differ from the nightlife venue experience and influence your approach to festivals and live event production? Because doing that in two different environments shapes the way you manage, I would imagine.
Definitely. But I think being a manager at XLR definitely gave me so much confidence in my decision making, which I really carry on into like the outdoor sort of festivals.
Mm-hmm.
As a manager, especially being a younger manager, I was making decisions and I'd be like, oh, is that the right thing? Like, I obviously don't have years and years of experience behind me. But when I would make decisions whilst I was in the club and things were going right, it just
Mm-hmm.
gave me so much confidence which I then have applied to festivals, which honestly, I think, I do a lot of event control at festivals, and in that role, you have to have a lot of confidence in your decisions, and it's a lot of operational decisions. Of
Yes.
course, you have the help of like event silvers and event golds in the room who really are the ones making the decision. But as an event control manager, you still have to have that sort of like critical thinking aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that is thanks to my experience at XLR and sort of be having that independence to make decisions on my own as a manager in so many different departments, whether that be with the bar, security issues, crowd control, medical, all sorts of different issues that were inside of the
Mm-hmm.
club. It's sort of given me that confidence, which I've then applied onto the festival world.
So XLR, where is that venue located?
It's in Withington in South Manchester.
Right. And what's the capacity of this venue?
It's a 200 cap.
Right. And was it packed to the rafters when you were working there?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes
Right.
we rammed.
I won't ask if you went over the legal limit, but
We didn't.
I'm glad you said that. Right. Um, Artist liaison, I know, is a big part of what you started doing and what you
Mm.
still do, is
Mhm,
it? So it seems to be a significant part of your background. So
mhm.
what's the key excellent artist relation, and what do artists really need from their liaison team?
So I think the key things to be
Mhm.
as an artist liaison is you need to be able to be communicative, you need to be able to adapt well, and you need to be like super resourceful. Like if you think of it from an artist's point of view, an artist is sometimes
Mhm.
playing 3 shows in 3 different cities or even countries in the same weekend. And so they're coming to you
Yeah.
and they just need to know where they're going, when they're getting there, how they're getting there. They need to have the confidence that when they arrive, they've got the rider that they've requested and the stage is going to be set up as they're expecting.
Mhm.
These artists, sometimes they don't even know like what day of the week it is because they're touring so much. And so you kind of have to be the person who is completely just there for whatever they need and be like communicative the entire time.
Mhm.
And when I say adaptable, like sometimes it's a lot of like gauging social cues. Sometimes artists really want someone to chat to, and they might
Yeah.
not chat to anyone that day. or in the same breath, sometimes they've had like a super long travel day, and you can tell that they just don't want to chat and they just want to like recoup before they go on stage. So it's a lot of like being able to adapt depending on what the artist wants, but also making sure they know you're there for them,
Okay.
and that they have everything they need.
I take it then. Do you know a man by the name of Matt Cheshire, who
No, I don't
runs
think
an
so.
artist? You need to meet that individual then. He runs a
Yeah.
company. He runs a company. We just did a podcast with him. I thought I
really?
said I did a podcast with him a couple of weeks ago, and he's from Leeds. Well, he studied in Leeds, and he started his company in Leeds, and he started in artist liaison. He's been running this company for 30 years, and he scaled it up to multi-million-pound sort of company in terms of what he
Wow.
does. And in terms of, like you said about gatekeeping, I will share his details with you. You need to you need to speak to him, because I
Yeah,
think you could do really well in terms of the contacts he has,
yeah,
if that's an area of work that you still want to continue.
yeah, definitely. Thank you. I'll reach out.
Yes, Matt Cheshire.
I'll look him up after this.
Yeah, and you can say that you did a podcast with me,
Yeah.
and yeah, because he knows Vikesh, my business partner,
Uh-huh.
and Vikesh has worked with him as well previously.
Okay.
So you're all connected.
Yeah.
Yes,
Always connected.
twice removed. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, thank you for that. Appreciate that.
not a problem. So I'm really interested in the drum and bass side of what you've done, because
Uh-huh.
that's a genre of music and a style of music that some people understand and know, but some people may not know. It goes back quite quite a few decades now,
Yeah.
but it's a relatively new type of music and sound.
Mm-hmm.
So working in drum and bass scene
Mm-hmm.
through Televise, what you set up, how do you balance supporting up and coming DJs while building a sustainable event brand? Because that's essentially what you were doing,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yeah. So I would say, well, back then, when I
Mhm.
was running events with Televised, I was supporting local DJs by having them as supporting DJs, and then having a headliner that people would know and buy tickets for. Because obviously, as a promoter, it's really hard to make money and really scary, because especially
Mhm.
with drum and bass events and any sort of like electronic event, customers are really last minute with buying tickets for the smaller gigs. A lot of them tend to buy tickets on the day for the show that night.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of risk involved, and so to like mitigate that, I guess having like a headliner that people know that you're confident will sell tickets, but also still shining light on your support acts, making sure you know that on the billing properly, that you're sharing them on social media, they're part of your whole marketing campaign, and sort of like shining light on them is like super important. But I
Mhm.
think if I was to continue doing televised events now, um just because the whole like cost of living and everything's so much more expensive now, and there's so much more risk involved with putting on events, I think I would actually start like my own merch line with televised, just to bring in
Right.
some like side income. But I would want it to
Yeah.
be like cool merch that people would actually wear, not just like with the logo on, but you know
So,
what I mean?
so have you registered the name of the brand yet?
No, but I think I should get onto that
I think
because
you should, yes,
I want
particularly
to
if you're
use
gonna,
it. Yeah,
yes, yeah, get that registered with the trademark office
I should ASAP.
and get your merchandise license.
Yeah.
Right. We're coming into the last stretch, so I've got a few questions about your current trends and future vision.
Hmm.
Um, so what trends are you seeing in live events right now, particularly in the UK festival live music scene, now that you're back in Manchester? What?
So I think that we are seeing actually a lot more people going out to events. I think for a while it looked like we were all retracting and just going online, but I think people have started to realize that, you know, we're human beings and we need that in-person interaction and connection, and people are looking
Mhm.
for this sort of third space that isn't work and isn't home, that they can like connect with other like-minded people and have a good time. So I
Mhm.
think we're actually seeing I think I was actually reading that where the event industry market is growing like exponentially at the moment. We're seeing more people go out to events.
It is.
Yeah, and I think people have been. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just to concur with your statement. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing more people want not only an event to attend, but also more of like an experience, whether that be something more immersive or they want something extra that isn't just being at the event. So more immersivity and more in-person events, I think, is the way things are heading at the moment.
Okay, so after everything you've experienced from venue management to festival operation, where do you see your career heading? I know it might be a really difficult question to answer, considering if you look back over the last 6 years where you've been.
Yeah.
So what is the dream project for you going forward?
So as a freelancer, my dream event to work at is the Super Bowl halftime show in the US.
Wow, you're definitely going big time.
I just think it would be amazing. I just nerd out over it like so bad when it's on. I love watching them back on YouTube. I watch them all the time in the gym, especially. So definitely that. But for like my own career, I don't know exactly what niche yet, but obviously at the moment I'm my own boss technically. I'm freelance, I'm a sole trader, but I want to turn it into a business that's more scalable. But I just haven't figured out what niche that's going to be in yet. But I'm going to be like a big business owner one day, but I just don't know in what.
Well, you definitely need to speak to Matt.
Yeah.
Because he was where you were 30 years ago, and he scaled up his artist liaison business to something significant.
Yeah, that's the dream. I'm definitely going to
Yeah.
reach out.
So I'd like to sort of close on this particular question for you.
Mhm.
If you could change one thing about how live events are produced or managed in the industry today, what would it be?
So I was thinking about this, and I think the thing that I would change is the barriers to entry into the event industry. At the moment, and when I was getting into events as well, you had to do a lot of voluntary work in order to get your foot in the door. And luckily, whilst I was at uni, I had the maximum student loan. So my student loan covered my rent and bills, and I really didn't have to and it covered my food shop, and I didn't have to worry about it was like extra disposable income, any job that I had at the time. But there's people out, it's very classist. There's people out there that's not an option for them and they have to make money. So I would say reducing the barriers to entry so that no one has to volunteer to work in the event industry would be what I would change.
Yes, it does sound like a really good one, but I've noticed over the years that volunteering has become even more sort of embedded in events and the events industry. And I suppose the biggest volunteer force that I saw in the UK was for the Olympic Games, where they had 70,000 volunteers. And it was it was the largest volunteer for any Olympic Games up at that point. So we have a sort of history of embedding volunteering in as part of the workforce, how well they're treated, like you said, and therefore people who can or will be able to do it, it will determine to a large degree, like you said, the networks they get in the community they find themselves in, and they can therefore project their future careers. So yes, it could be a significant barrier to entry for people who may not have financial
It's tricky as well
stability.
Because the whole volunteer model at events is based on the idea that a lot of people are doing it because they get a free ticket and they get to see the event, which is obviously amazing. But
Yes.
that's not the case for everyone. There's people out there that they just like actually want to work full time and make a career out of this. So in that sense, it's not really fair.
Yes, very true.
Yeah.
So on that note, I would like to close our presentation unless you have anything you'd like to depart or inform our audience.
I just want
Before
to
you
say
do.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Like, I really enjoyed it.
No,
Yeah.
it's been a pleasure. And I say that with a lot of the people that I sort of have on the podcast is because it really does give a flavor of people who probably have gone through their career and now to the latter part of their career.
Mm.
But a lot of young people like you, I've put on the podcast, and that energy and passion always shines through. And I think
Yeah.
for anybody, like you said, moving into any industry, particularly the live events industry, your energy and passion will show when you walk in the door, when you're sat at the table, when you're
Mm.
having a discussion with somebody, and it could be an innocuous discussion because you don't know who this person is and you
Yeah.
don't know who they know. And
Yeah.
before you know it, somebody's coming to you and offering you work. And it could be just based off them having that conversation with you.
100%.
And it wasn't necessarily an interview, it was just a
Yeah.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
So I do thank you very much for that.
Thank you.